Before we get started, I have an announcement to make. Subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. Yes, there's a newsletter, and you can check it out at montrealgazette.com/newsletters. You can get all the great stuff from the Montreal Gazette's hockey coverage, Stu stuff, Pat stuff, even Jack Todd whenever he wants to write stuff, and even Hockey Inside Out stuff as well, which, by the way, you're watching this right now. But yeah, you can also stay up to date thanks to the newsletter, montrealgazette.com/newsletters, and you can check out the Hockey Inside Out newsletter from there. I've said newsletter a lot. Let's say hockey more on this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. Welcome to Hockey Inside Out. I'm Julian McKenzie, alongside the usual suspects. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette is here. Jessica Rusnak of CBC Daybreak Montreal is also here. And Stanley Cup champion, former Montreal Canadiens player and assistant coach Rick Green also here. It's always great to see the familiar cast on Hockey Inside Out and preseason action. We get to talk about that on this week's episode. In particular, just to start off here, this line that kind of did some pretty big things on Monday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Jonathan Drouin, Christian Dvorak, and Josh Anderson trio, especially on the power play. Christian Dvorak got himself some points. Jonathan Drouin looked all right. Josh Anderson was able to add to the score sheet as well. I know it's preseason, but they looked pretty good. I'm just curious what your general thoughts are on that line combination.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for them to experiment with some combinations. And obviously, when they threw this line together and see what they did, collecting 9 points between them, and not to mention the chemistry that they had as a group, with the ability to find each other. They've got great speed. They've got great smarts. And you got Anderson, this huge body that can do a lot of mucking work in the corners. Aside from his speed down the wing, so. A great game together as a group, and it's really nice to see that some of these players gel together so quickly. And it remains to be seen how the combinations are going to play out. Obviously, with injuries, but really good start for that trio to see how good they can be and how creative they can be offensively. And you mentioned about the power play, man oh man, they're tough to stop out there with that type of skill and smarts.
Yeah, only a preseason game, but 4 points for Dvorak, 2 goals for Anderson, 2 assists for Drouin. It was nice to see Dvorak in person, a guy who watch him play from the press box, a guy who in Arizona you don't get to see him that often, but very impressive. What was also interesting is that Josh Anderson came to Montreal a month before training camp and lived with Jonathan Drouin and his girlfriend, and they were working out off the ice. They were skating together. And Dominic Ducharme said the other day that he gave them a hint during the summer they'd be playing on the same line at training camp. So they were coming up with all these sort of little plays together during the summer. And one of them was the third period breakaway that Anderson had with that long pass from Drouin. He was stopped, but it was a great play. So these guys spent a lot of time together in the summer. They're good friends. They like each other. They get along well. Anderson helped Drouin a lot last season when he was going through his anxiety issues and that. He was a good friend for him. They played together at the World Juniors for Team Canada. They know each other well. So there's chemistry there, definitely between those two. They're going to get to know Dvorak, and Dvorak came as advertised, a solid 200-foot centerman with offensive abilities. And as Rick said, on the power play, that goal he scored on the power play, he was sort of just stood in front of the net and put it in, but the passing play around. And the Canadiens need somebody to fill that spot in front of the net on the power play, and Dvorak looks like he's a guy who can do that.
It's just kind of like the perfect recipe, the three of them. Josh Anderson, known as the workhorse, Jonathan Drouin, his playmaking ability, and then Christian Dvorak has really shown his ability to be a good two-way forward as well. And that's something that Dominic Ducharme spoke about with Christian Dvorak, a player that we haven't got to see that much here in Montreal, but just how smart he is as a hockey player. And he comes in, very business-like. He's a serious player. And this is the kind of player that you want to have in the locker room. It's a great example for some of the younger players. And the fact that the three of them were able to do so well in that first preseason game, hopefully they can keep it up and it's not just a thing that dies quickly, but I don't think so. The way that they've all been playing really well there. And I'm sure that they want to stay together because it seems like they're enjoying what they've been able to do. And the fact that Josh Anderson and Jonathan Drouin did get a head start by getting that hint that Stu mentioned from Dominic Ducharme this summer, I think is a really nice added bonus.
Yeah, Josh Anderson's sort of like Rob Gronkowski on skates. And that pass from Drouin was sort of like Tom Brady hitting Gronkowski down the middle. So yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch. I mean, as Rick said, Anderson's just a big, huge guy and hard to stop. And there were some AHL guys playing for the Leafs that night in the preseason game and just couldn't handle him. But NHL defensemen have a hard time handling him too. And when he's healthy, boy, he's a tough guy to stop when he just is determined that he's going to go to the net.
For sure. I was just happy to see a power play that just wasn't reliant on sending a puck to the point and just hoping and praying a shot was just going to clear through a whole bunch of defensemen and just score. It was just really cool to see passing plays go from the point all the way into the bumper slot that on that play that Christian Dvorak scored, which happened as a result of some quick touch passing with everyone. That was some magic between those Canadiens players on the ice. And I think the Canadiens would like to see more of that between that unit they used on the power play, which again consisted of that line. I wanted to focus a little bit more on Jonathan Drouin. I didn't know about the fact that Josh Anderson got to stay with him about a month before training camp began. That's a really cool tidbit, Stu. But we kind of touched off on him last week and the fact that he was willing to discuss his anxiety issues. And I know we touched off and again after Monday night's victory. I'm just curious what your expectations are for Jonathan Drouin. Again, this is a guy who hasn't played any meaningful hockey in months. He seems like he's refreshed and ready to go. And another thing I noticed too, especially on Monday, was that the crowd was very happy to see him on the ice. He got like a secondary assist on the first goal the Canadiens scored that night, and he got the loudest cheers of anyone. I'm really curious what a lot of other people's expectations are, but I'm also in particular interested in your own panelists. What are your expectations for Drouin? And did the game on Monday kind of change any of them at all at any point?
Well, even going back to the red versus white scrimmage on Sunday, Drouin got a loud ovation every time he touched the puck, every time they showed him on the giant screen. So it was really nice to see the fans supporting him and welcoming him back. But every year, everybody sort of, is this the year Jonathan Drouin breaks through? Is this the year Jonathan Drouin breaks through? With the anxiety issues he was dealing with, anybody who's ever dealt with him or knows somebody who does knows how debilitating it can be. So if that is behind him, and it looks like it is, he's looked good on ice. He's been having fun on practice. He did a media conference after the game on Monday night. He looked really good. He looked happy. He looked comfortable. Said he's happy to talk about what he went through. He's happy to help any other people if he can. So, he's not young anymore. I believe he's 26. So that thing that he's a young guy, 26 in the NHL isn't that young. But everything is set up for him to succeed this season. If the anxiety issues are indeed behind him, and hopefully they are, he's got two really good line mates. He's got a coach who really likes him, Dom Ducharme, going back to their days in Halifax when they won the Memorial Cup together. He's going to give him every opportunity to succeed. I think he will. I think Drouin's going to have a really good season this year. It'll be interesting to see, though, when things do go bad, and things do go bad for every player. Every player goes through slumps at times, is how he's able to handle that. When things do go bad and he goes 5-6 games, maybe without a goal or without a point, and maybe the fans aren't so friendly to him anymore, how he's going to handle that situation. But personally, I think Jonathan Drouin is going to have a good year this year. I think we're going to see the player that Marc Bergevin was hoping he would get when he made that trade.
And I think the biggest thing too is that the player has to have fun. They have to enjoy what they're doing. And yes, you can say they're a professional athlete being paid millions of dollars. They just need to find a way to make it fun, but that's easier said than done. So he seems like he has the right mindset, that he enjoys what he's doing again. And I think all of us could relate to that you're doing something that you might no longer enjoy. You're in a rut. And then all of a sudden, when you're able to get through it, then things becomes that much more easier. And it's a lot more easy to go to work every day. And I think that's what the case is right now with Jonathan Drouin. He's set up in a perfect situation. As we mentioned, his line looked really good. So now it's just up to him to put in that work. We all know what Jonathan Drouin can do and the kind of skill set that he has, but it's just a matter of putting that work and wanting that. And I think that has always been kind of an issue with Jonathan Drouin, was going that extra mile after being a player for many years, being the star of his team, and then getting to a point where, your skill can only take you so far. Now it's your work ethic. And I hope that's the case. And I really do want to see him, take on that playmaker role, set, some good goals up and pick up those assists rather than being the guy that's getting the puck in the net.
And I touched on it before. I think it's really important that you put Jonathan Drouin with on a good line to allow him the chance to have some success. And obviously they had some the other night, but that's one game. Looking at some of the negatives from his previous performances, you have to really have a close look at his inconsistencies and, his sometimes not even finding them during the games. I think that he's had these areas addressed through the coaching staff, and he's going to have to find a way to show up every night, get involved, be engaged, and use, be enthusiastic to be part of the team. And I think that area is something that he was lacking before, and hopefully he's grown up to the point where he knows what he has to do each and every night. But I think that it's going to be really important for him to understand he can't take a night off, can't take a shift off, because he has the ability to perform. Now he has to do it on a consistent basis.
Yeah, when Drouin first came to Montreal, I spoke with his agent, Alan Walsh, and I asked what advice he had given Drouin coming into this market. And he told him, he said, just have fun. And it obviously stopped being fun for Jonathan Drouin last season. It wasn't fun at all. He looks like he's having fun again. He spoke about how he's learning to forget about the past and just worry about what's happening now. There's the past, the present, and the future. There's only two of them you can control, right? Whatever happened in the past, he's got to learn to just forget about that. And hopefully, I'm sure he does. He has a better support team around him now, dealing with his anxiety and whatnot. So hopefully that will allow him to do that this season, to sort of forget about the bad game, focus on the present and the future. And as I said, I think Jonathan Drouin is going to have a good year.
I will go so far as to say that Jonathan Drouin has the potential to be the feel-good story of the National Hockey League this year, considering what he's had to battle over the last few months to even put himself in this point. For our next topic, we're going to discuss Alexander Romanov. I don't know if you guys remember from last week's episode, we were trying to figure out what our top 6 defense core for the Canadiens would look like. And neither of us excluded Alexander Romanov from that top 6. The next point I want to kind of step over and talk on with Romanov is his role for this team. We've spoken about how, the Canadiens had him in the bubble, even though he wasn't eligible to play. But then in the playoffs, this past postseason, he doesn't really get that much of a look, not pretty much until the very end, really. So for this coming season, what do you envision his role being with the Montreal Canadiens, and how do you think he'll fit on this blue line?
Well, I think he has to have a little bit of a better training camp right now and really show the difference between him, a player that, yes, you were in the bubble, even though you didn't play, but you had, a condensed season in the NHL. And he needs to show that he is above some of the other players like Caden Gooley or Norlinder as well, because of the experience that you already have in the NHL. And that's what he needs to bring. I know Dominic Ducharme mentioned that he has to do a better job of controlling his emotions or his energy that way. But I really just hope that this is the year that Alexander Romanov is able to step up and show what he's able to do on a consistent basis, because there's been some times where you look at it and you go, wow, this guy's a really good NHL defenseman, but he just has to be able to do it night in and night out. Now, the other thing is, don't forget, the Montreal Canadiens have had issues managing young players, helping them develop, not, sort of making a fairy tale story with a bad ending when there's a player that everyone gets really excited about at the beginning and then just doesn't continue on with the team. So that is what I'm hoping for, that they let this player develop and develop him properly so he can be that player that can reach his full potential.
I'm hoping for the development of Romanov that he's given every opportunity to play. I mean, he has to play power play, he has to play penalty kill, and he has to log some serious minutes and let him develop. And that's the only way that he's going to get better. It's different if he didn't have the tools to contribute at the NHL level, but I believe that he does. And now he just has to hone those skills a little bit through experience. And I really think that he's going to be a really good player, but he's going to have to be used, more than what he's used now. And let him play, let him do his thing, because he's going to get better in a lot of areas. And I'm just pushing for this kid to be used more, and he's going to develop, I think, that much quicker.
I think the Canadiens need someone other than David Savard to step up into the top 4 defense role beside Ben Sherratt, where Shea Weber played last season. I think Romanov would be to me, the best guy to do that. We'll see how much of the coaching staff trusts him. They obviously didn't trust him in the playoffs last season to play him. But Dominic Ducharme has said during training camp that he wants to have 3 defense pairings he can put on the ice against anyone. And we're not going to see a situation like we did in the playoffs last year where the big 4 played almost the entire game and the bottom 2 defensemen were playing 6, 7, 8 minutes a game. As he said, you squeezed the lemon more in the playoffs, trying to get to the Stanley Cup final, which they did, and trying to win the Stanley Cup. So riding those 4 guys worked in the playoffs, but it's obviously not going to work over an 82-game season. I wouldn't be shocked to see Norlinder start the season with the Canadiens because he either stays here or he goes back to Sweden. Those are the 2 options. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him start the season here. The Canadiens see how he does, and if it doesn't work out, send him back. But to me, Romanov is the guy I think needs to step up and try and earn that second pairing spot. I see David Savard more as a third pairing defenseman. You have Chris Weidman thrown in there also. He's sort of a wild card in this. But for Romanov, it's the Canadiens they got to trust this kid a little bit and give him a chance to show what he can do without the fear of being made a healthy scratch every time he makes a mistake.
Yeah, let him handle the puck too, because I think he has some of those skills to at least be able to be mobile and move the puck around, and especially with the way this defense is composed, I don't see a glut of puck-carrying defensemen in this roster. So I think Romanov has an opportunity there. I want to go back to your point about Mattias Norlinder. I'd be stunned, personally, if the Canadiens found a way to keep him in the lineup as like a 7th defenseman or even a 6th, considering the fact that Chris Weidman is available. And I didn't think he looked half bad against the Toronto Maple Leafs earlier this week. They also acquired Sami Niku, who I think was in the Winnipeg Jets organization, a small defenseman, but that's a guy who's logged some NHL minutes. And I could easily see him as a 7th defenseman on this team. So I'm really curious why you would think that Mattias Norlinder you wouldn't be surprised to see him there when there are at least those 2 options who I think might be slightly above him right now.
I think Norlinder is the most talented puck-moving defenseman of them all. Obviously, he doesn't have the experience. He's still adjusting to the bigger rink. So that's why I just think he's Weidman's a wild card in this. He's looked good. He can carry the puck also. He has the NHL experience. But as Dominic Ducharme likes to say, the players make the decisions for him in training camp. The other thing he likes to say is he's never seen a player come to the NHL too late, but he has seen some come too early. The difference with Norlinder is he's 21 years old. He's already played a couple of seasons of pro hockey in Sweden. So he's played against men. He has that experience. So that's one of the things that's going to be interesting to watch as training camp moves forward, is where Ducharme puts Norlinder in the lineup. Ducharme has said there's 6 preseason games, and he said the last 2 are the ones that will get an idea of what the regular season team might look like. So if we see Norlinder in those 2 games, and depending who he's with, that'll give us a good sign of whether he might start the season with Montreal.
I think you really have to be careful on how you handle these kids. You talked about Gouli also. I mean, this kid has handled himself very, very well for a 19-year-old, and Norlinder, has done his share of pretty good play also. But, I think the bottom line is these kids have to play, and I don't think they're going to help their development by not having them in a full-time position on the defensive core. And unless you can spot them in to take one of those other guys' jobs, I don't think it's worthwhile in their development to put them in and out of the lineup. And I think that's just a bad thing that's going to happen for them to become better defensemen at the NHL level.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt Gouli is going back to junior to Prince Albert, and it's a good chance he'll be captain for Team Canada at the World Junior team. But man, that game against Toronto, he did not look like a 19-year-old kid on the ice. And during his media interview afterwards, it was like, this kid's 19? Seriously? So calm and cool and confident, answering all the questions. Just like a 19-year-old kid coming into the media room with the spotlight and all of us guys sitting there asking him questions. Boy, it was really impressive to watch him.
And especially because those who were drafted in 2020 didn't have a chance to experience all this before. So it's the first time he's facing all this, and he's been able to handle it in such a great way.
Just a really mature, impressive 19-year-old kid that certainly looks like he's going to have a future with this team. But as I said, that's one guy I'm sure they're not going to rush into the NHL this season.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see him at this early stage to step in and play with that type of confidence and be involved and not be, afraid of making mistakes. And, nothing but a good feel for for both those kids moving forward to be part of the organization in the near future.
And when he was asked to assess his performance, he said solid, and it was solid. And Dominic Ducharme said that he has confidence, but he has a good type of confidence. He said it's a good confidence and he's a really good kid. And it certainly, that came across when he met with the media after the game.
I know Gouli had the shot block. Someone made a Shea Weber comparison. My favorite thing that Caden Gouli did on Monday, at like the beginning of the game, even if it was called offside, he made a brilliant stretch pass, I think, to Josh Anderson. I know he was called offside, but I was like, wait a minute. If he has that in his game, and I know it's preseason, but if he has that in his game and he can be imposing, the Canadiens have a really good one with Caden Gouli. Let's move on to our final topic of this episode with regards to Brendan Gallagher, who some might feel might be the de facto captain of this team in absence of Shea Weber. And if you ask some people, he probably should have had the C from a long time ago, but that's neither here nor there. Another, I guess not issue, but more another discussion topic with regards to Brendan Gallagher is his placement in this lineup. Josh Anderson could very well be a second line winger with the Christian Dvorak and Jonathan Drouin combination. The first line could easily be Tyler Toffoli, Nick Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield. Where does that leave Brendan Gallagher? You're probably not going to want to put him on the fourth line, so he might be a third line player. Is that potential placement for Brendan Gallagher to his benefit? Do you see him as a third line winger? Do you see him working out there?
I think it's early to say, exactly where Gallagher is going to fit in. But one thing,
very fair.
I think one thing will never change. No matter where Gallagher plays, he's going to do everything he can to get the job done, to help his teammates. With a quality young man like that, he's going to make more positives no matter where he is in the lineup. We just have to have him in the lineup, and then they're going to figure out, which combinations will complement each other. And, he's just such a great person. And, I'm looking for great things for him this year, no matter where he plays.
I think a lot of people forget that Cole Caulfield is still a rookie going into this season. He's an incredibly talented player, but there's going to be growing pains along the way. And, Brendan Gallagher can easily fit into that spot if Caulfield starts having issues. And that's where he was at practice the other day with Caulfield out with his upper body injury. But the thing with Brendan Gallagher, he's like the Energizer Bunny. Whatever line you put him on, if you're a coach and you need a line that needs a spark, you put Brendan Gallagher on that line and there's your spark. And Gallagher spoke about it the other day and he said, like, to him, he doesn't really, whoever he plays with, it doesn't change his game. He's just going to do his thing. And Dominic Ducharme spoke about that too. You know where he's going to be. If you dump the puck in the corner, he's going to go get it. If you throw it at the net, he's going to be there. Brendan Gallagher just plays his game. And I don't think it really matters who he's with, and whoever he plays with, he's going to make them better. And there's not a lot of guys in the NHL who are like that. Brendan Gallagher is one of them. He spoke about how he's a unique player in the NHL as a 30-goal scorer, and that he's not the fastest guy. He's definitely not the biggest guy. He doesn't have the best shot, but he got where he is by just outworking everybody else. And that's what he'll continue to do. And I don't think it really matters what line he's on. He's just going to play his game. What might actually help him if he is on the so-called third line, although Ducharme doesn't want to number his lines, is he might get some better matchups. Play against some guys who aren't as defensively good as what he was playing against when he was with Tatar and Danault. So that might actually help him and free him up to score more goals. But Brendan Gallagher is Brendan Gallagher. He's going to do his thing. It doesn't matter if he's on the first line, the second line, the third line, the fourth line. Put him on defense. Put him in net. He probably could play goalie too. He's just so competitive, and like, I have all the time in the world for Brendan Gallagher. He's just, wherever you put him, he's going to be Brendan Gallagher. And as Dominic Ducharme says, he brings that galley spice to the team. And he is, as you mentioned, the de facto captain. He's the only guy who's going to wear an A every game this season. So he technically is the captain this season, even though he doesn't have the C on his shirt.
Brendan Gallagher is the best gift you could give to any coach in the NHL. He's one of those players that's no maintenance. You don't have to worry about him at all. So if he is on the third line, he, like we said, he will make do. He will continue to do what he has to do. And Brendan Gallagher has kind of been a guy that everyone has always doubted from the beginning of when he started to play hockey competitively till when he came into the NHL. Remember when he started, everyone said, he's playing well now, but a guy his size, the way he plays, his career won't be long in the NHL. And he showed that's not true. So he's just going to continue to go do what he has to do. And it doesn't matter what line he's on, he will be Brendan Gallagher that we know.
It's interesting you say there, Jess, about how coaches don't even really need to talk to him. I remember Michel Therrien, when he was coaching the Canadiens, saying he had to remind himself sometimes to talk to Gallagher. Because he does everything right on and off the ice. So you'll go a week, you don't even, like, you're dealing with other guys you got to talk to. And then you go, I better talk to him just to let him know that, keep going, Galley, or whatever. But yeah, he's a coach's dream. Just a guy, whatever, doesn't complain wherever you put him. He just plays the same way, doesn't complain, doesn't whine, just does his thing.
And Brendan Gallagher is the team guy. It's not about Brendan. I mean, he's the first one to, mention everybody else other than himself. And you don't have to worry about a guy like that to, complain or make any type of comment that he's not happy with whoever he's playing with or ice time or anything. He's just, he's a real pro, and he's a great guy to have on your side.
As I wrote in a column the other day, he's the heart and soul of the Canadiens. And he's also the voice of the Canadiens. One thing Shea Weber hated doing was dealing with the media, and he was hard to get any words out of him or anything interesting out of him. Gallagher, his first time speaking with the media, a training camp, he spoke for 15 minutes, answered every question. So he's the heart and soul of the team. He's also the voice of the team. He speaks, when he speaks, people listen in the room and outside of the room. And, that's, as I said, that's one of the things. Shea Weber is just not in his personality. He doesn't like to talk. He really doesn't like to talk to the media. But as sort of the replacement captain, I guess that's a good way to put it. We'll hear a lot from Brendan Gallagher this season.
If you take nothing else from this podcast, but I'm sure you probably would have known already, Stu Cowan, a big fan of Brendan Gallagher. And I get it too. And I get it. He's done what he's done throughout his Montreal Canadiens career to appeal to many of the fan base. And I think, you know what, I'm kind of with Stu here. If he takes advantage of some pretty decent matchups on a second or a third line and he's healthy, watch out for Brendan Gallagher. He might have that scoring punch right back. I think that's pretty much going to do it for this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. Still in the preseason, inching ever so closely to another regular season in Montreal Canadiens land. An 82-game season. It's the first time in a while I've ever had to sit through one of those. But I'm looking forward to that, as I am for more episodes of this show.
At least we don't have to watch Calgary Flames 10 times this year.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's big shade to all of my friends out in Calgary who have to watch the Flames and whatever they got going on over there. Anyway, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate the subscriptions whenever we can get them, and leave us comments as well, just to let us know what you think of the episode and, your thoughts on Brendan Gallagher and Alexander Romanov and Jonathan Drouin, who I think has a really good chance of being the feel-good story of this year, considering the fact he's had to battle through what he's battled through. Yeah, write us in the comments section. And be sure to subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter at montrealgazette.com/newsletters. And check out the Hockey Inside Out website. It's got a lot of good stuff over there, too. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.